Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University, and welcome to Outrider 3. What is research? This request comes via Ruth. Hi Ruth, and Ruth asked two questions of me for this video series. The first was, what is research? And the second is, what is a researcher? Now I know this will come as a surprise to you, but this week we're looking at what is research, and in the Outrider next week we're exploring what is a researcher. These requests are a gift. I would not have come up with these requests or ideas on my own, so an enormous thank you to Ruth. And I'm also aware of the great privilege it is to be able to talk about this topic. This is my 10th job in my 10th university in my 4th country. And now about a third of my jobs through my life have been in research portfolios. That's a gift. And that's a privilege, and it's a gift and a privilege that is very rarely granted to women, and very rarely granted to women who have their initial training in the humanities and the social sciences. There are many reasons for that, but I am aware as I speak to you today about the great privilege I have and the position I have to speak to you about research, and it's a privilege that I have never and will never take for granted. Okay, so this is such a provocative and fantastic question. I'm excited. Let's look at what is research. And this is a great way to start our Outrider series, really, to think about, okay, well, what actually is research? And it is a way into the discussion for thousands, tens of thousands of people around the world. And that's important. Research must be transparent, it must be accountable, and research must move. So let's do this. At its most basic, research develops knowledge. So there's your definition. If you just want a little bit of a definition to move forward in your life, research develops knowledge. Right, so you can go and have a cup of coffee now. Thanks for playing. If you like, research and knowledge are like Morecambe and Wise, or Beyonce and Adele. Knowledge is changed, is developed, is enhanced through research. This knowledge can be theoretical or empirical, it can be conceptual, it can be methodological. Right, so research develops knowledge, tick, that's our first definition. Let's now add some complexity to that. Research is a systematic inquiry. So let's unpick that phrase a little bit. That involves the formation of hypotheses, thesis statements, or research questions. Let me tell you why. Because thesis statements, research questions allow us to collect, curate, organise information, and then analyse and shape that information, and then we draw conclusions from that analysis. And what we then do, because research doesn't stop at just going, oh, this is what we found, cool. What we then have to do is move that research back into knowledge and demonstrate how it can be implemented in our social, cultural, economic, but also intellectual lives. Some methodologies and research areas, disciplines, demand that the research is repeatable. So we do something, we do an experiment, and that's great, but the result is only meaningful if it can be repeated. We see that imperative a great deal in the experimental sciences. But some methodologies, such as creative-led, creative-based, practice-led, practice-based, simply cannot be repeatable. Doesn't mean they're not research, they certainly are. But different modalities to prove transparency are activated, like positionality theory or standpoint theory. Put another way, research in all disciplines creates an understanding of our world. And it's an understanding of that world that was not known before the research was conducted. This is transformational. So research is transformational of our social, economic, political, and intellectual lives. So research activates change. Okay. The systematic component of research is absolutely crucial. Our research must be verified and it must be checked, and not checked by us, like us going, oh, it's cool, whatever. No, it's got to be verified and checked by others. And that's why peer review is so crucial to the development of research, because we need to be checked. If we're not checked, then it's not knowledge, and it's certainly not research. So from the most junior of academics, PhD students included in that definition, right through to our senior professors, blind peer review, that means that the reviewers don't know who you are and you don't know who they are, right? So it's often called double blind. Double blind peer review keeps us honest, keeps us real, keeps us robust, and most importantly, keeps our research transparent and outward. Very important. Without verification and without accountability, there is no research. Okay, so dissemination is also part of research, as you've picked up. We are adding to new knowledge, right? That's what we're doing. We're developing new knowledge, and our knowledge then becomes the foundation of new questions, and the iterations and transformations of knowledge through research continue through time. Right. The point of research is to improve the lives and the environment of other people, other human beings, the environment, other animals, for example. And we have to understand in the world what is working and what is not working. So how do we do that? This improvement in research is based on knowing what we know. Once we know what we know, we then have a pretty good idea that we know what we don't know. And when we know what we don't know, that's where research is activated. And we need to have some sense of that unknowability, and that's what triggers research questions and so forth. Now, I know this is all sounding a bit Donald Rumsfeld, for which I really, really apologise, but it's only when we know what we know that we can know what is unknown. And therefore, what is the gift of research? And I find this so inspiring every single day. The gift of research is it provides a bridge from what we know to the unknown. And the role of researchers is to walk on that bridge. The knowing of the known is confirmed through a literature review. So how do you prove you know stuff, right? Well, you do a literature review, you also present referencing, and you also present a bibliography. This is significant because having an opinion is great, and it's many things, but having an opinion is not research. Having an experience is not research. Having a particular identity label is not research. Research is based on knowing the state of knowledge and then being able to locate a gap, something which is unknowable, and then through rigorous, careful, transparent study, we're able to start to know the unknowable. And we know it with rigour, with accountability, and in some disciplines, repeatability. Research is important to an array of other industries, private and public corporations, a whole series of businesses. Because what research actually does is it improves problem solving and it improves decision making for citizens. That's why it's so crucial. Research is evidence driven, it is accountable, and it is verifiable. Now, we see in governments around the world, particularly at the moment, what happens when an opinion, an experience, or a vibe becomes more important than following the actual research and following the evidence. And we see the impact of that on decision making. So decision making, particularly in government, but I would argue in all businesses, should be evidentially driven, and that evidence is configured and shaped by experts. But when all that stuff has gone, it's about a vibe, we can see the consequences to the planet when vibes start to run policy. Each discipline has a specific contribution to the development of epistemology, ontology, and methodology. And that difference matters, it's important. But if we melt the boundaries between disciplines for a moment, so yes, every discipline has important things to add to this conversation, but for a moment I just want to melt the boundaries and borders between disciplines and cut up research in a different way to help our definition. All research has about three purposes, three ways of doing it. And most of us through our careers focus on two of these. It's very rare that people have all three bases covered, if you will. Most of us do two of these. The first is exploratory research. Fantastically important. I've done a lot of this in my career. This is often the first research that exists in relation to a particular problem or event or idea. So this is the first refereed article. And what exploratory research does is in many ways it configures a problem, or it shapes an event and does the great work for the people that are to follow. So if you like, exploratory research are the real outriders. They go out there and they go, I've found something that's a problem. Let's shape it for following colleagues to create research questions and kick this ball forward. Often exploratory research doesn't have the highest citations, right? Because this is the people doing the hard yakka, getting the sort of framework in place, the sort of building the house, and then all the attention is on the people that do the nice decorating in the house after. Am I angry? Am I resentful? No, I'm not. But exploratory research, very exciting, really interesting, and again, a great way to spend your time because you really are enabling the future of research. The second type of research is descriptive research. We see this a great deal in the social sciences and the sciences more generally. And what this does is it describes the characteristics of a person, an event, a phenomenon. It's often called thick description. We see it a great deal in ethnography and a lot of fieldwork related methodologies. Thick description. This is really important research. Yeah, wow. And it focuses on the what and the how of life. It rarely focuses on the why questions, but the how and the what, really crucial questions. A lot of good, deep methodological work gets done here. And the final mode of research is explanatory research. This research is really interesting because it investigates how variables or characteristics engage, connect, and mesh. So in this mode of research, we start to see particularly correlations emerging. So, there's a correlation there, fantastic. And if we're really lucky, we start to see some causality. So this great way of thinking and doing research starts to build those relationships and render those relationships meaningful. So the why questions are really answered here, and experimentation is particularly dominant in this mode of research. But also a lot of theoretical work can exist here as well. Okay, the other way to cut up research beyond our disciplines is through looking at what's often called the two basic types of research. Basic research, and applied research. Basic, applied. Basic research is also described as pure research, which is really interesting. And this is the original investigation of a person, of an event, of a phenomena. It develops knowledge from existing principles, ideas, theories, and laws. It develops knowledge in a predictable, careful way, acknowledging the history of ideas. It is sadly often these days described as non-commercial research. Yeah. It's seen to be not solving practical problems. And those practical problems, of course, it's all about here's an immediate problem, here's an immediate threat, and we require an immediate response to this immediate problem. Now, as you can see, basic research has taken a real beating recently, particularly in Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. So in the Antipodes, we have really hammered, as an intellectual community, basic research, and there will be consequences of that for generations. So what's happened in Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand is universities have made decisions to close down a series of disciplines like physics, like chemistry, like philosophy, and a range of disciplines in the humanities and in the arts. So just go, we no longer need that slice of knowledge. So whenever you see the Bachelor of Arts or the Bachelor of Science threatened in some form, truncated or limited, then what you're seeing is a truncation of the future of basic research. This is obviously a catastrophic mistake. We have this assumption at the moment that all research must be of immediate economic benefit, right? So don't do something unless there's some dough, and not dough in the even medium term, like dough quickly, right? That's the new definition of research. And all of this forgets that applied research, commercial research, if you will, is based on, is founded on centuries of basic research. So do you want your medical scientists to not have expertise in chemistry? Seriously, you want medical scientists making drugs without basic research in chemistry? Do you want your engineers to build bridges, build buildings without physics? Oh, this is going well. Now, so there we go. So that's basic research. I had something to say. I've said it. The other type of research is called applied research. Applied research commences knowledge generation from what's called a practical application. Now, it generates knowledge with an immediate response, an immediate outcome. This, I know it'll be a surprise to you, but applied research is of great interest to national governments around the world. But the important research, the really crucial research, of course, is not being supported in any way, shape or form, because we're now in this short-termism thing, right? So we need, this is the grant, and what's the outcome of the grant? Boof, boof. And of course, knowledge doesn't work like that, and research certainly doesn't. So all this focus on short-termism means we're missing out on the big issues and understanding what's going on. Climate change, anyone? All the urgency now, what was happening 30 and 40 years ago? Yeah. I always remember that great line, I think it was from Kurt Lewin, that remarkable German-American psychologist who specialised in organisational and applied psychology. And he stated, quote, "There is nothing so practical as good theory," end of quote. Nothing so practical as good theory. I live by that maxim. Brilliant. So as you can see in this Outrider session, research is powerful. Research is important. It's not personal experience, it's not emotion, it's not your lived experience, it's not what you think, it's not what you feel. Research is a demanding mistress. Oh yes, she is. And yes, the political, the social, the ideological volatility around our universities at the moment makes it really difficult to have a strong research career. The best research and the best research careers, if you look at the great scholars that we follow in the footsteps of, their careers developed over decades. And that's because they were supported to develop that research over decades. Now, through short-term contracts, casualisation of contracts, the development of a research career is increasingly difficult. But research is important. It's an important task. Indeed, it is a life-changing task. A commitment to research is a commitment to discipline, intellectual discipline. It's a commitment to transcending the self, a commitment to inquiry, a commitment to asking questions and taking the risk and showing the courage that we may not be able to answer those questions. Research is also a commitment to challenging what we know. But who activates such commitments? The answer is the researcher. Our focus of the Outrider next week. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.